guys, Nick here, and today I'm going to talk about my brand new ND filter that I bought, because as you guys know, about a month and a half ago I actually lost my older ND filter. So this specific filter is actually a generation newer than my previous one that I lost, and I also got one that's a size smaller. This is 72 millimeters as opposed to 77, because basically the backstory with that, I was going to buy the Canon 17 to 55 2.8, that's a 77 millimeter lens, but I decided to go with the Sigma 18 to 35, which is a 72 millimeter lens, after I already bought the filter. So that's why I always had it one size bigger. So now to talk about the build quality, it has the aluminum frame very similar to the last one, but what's different is this one has an anti-reflection blue coating. Now this is supposed to help with any glare that might happen, because it's not right up against the lens, so there's some room in there for light to bounce back and forth, so you might get a reflection and it obviously won't look as natural in your shot, and it should help make this filter look a little bit more high quality as opposed to the cheap $30 filter that it truly is. It's advertised at Professional Optical Glass, which has helped with clarity and color reproduction, which I'll touch on later. And the overall design of the filter, it is slimmer, so it'll fit in your pocket easier. The case isn't as thick, so it fits in the camera bag, it can pack nicer, and also it's less protruding off the lens. So let's say you're balancing it on the gimbal, so you shouldn't have to account for all that extra weight that the old one might have had. So after some testing with the ND filter, these are some things that I found. I want to talk about colors, the sharpness of the filter, and how well the anti-reflection layer works. So let's start with the good stuff. The sharpness is very impressive. I mean, you could scale the footage up 500% and compared to the Sigma 18 to 35 with no filter and with the ND filter on, and the difference between the two is negligible. So sharpness is definitely a huge win. Now the anti-reflection layer, that also seems to work very well. The one shot I purposely pointed it towards the sun, so that way I can try to get some sort of lens flares, and I have to say, I actually like the lens flares produced on the 10 to 18 with the ND filter as opposed to no filter at all. And there also was no weird reflections in the lens as you point it at the sun, because it was at a little bit of an angle, and everything still looked perfectly fine. So that coating does seem to work very well. Now let's talk about the colors. For the test shots I got, I put the white balance on manual and dialed it in. For the first shot, I dialed in the white balance with the ND filter on and then took it off and compared it that way. And as you can see, the shot with the filter, I mean, my white balance is slightly off, but overall it looks pretty good. But then you move to the shot without the ND filter and things start to look very blue, they're magenta tinged, they just don't look as good. You can tell the white balance is definitely off. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just adding more warmth into the shot. So then I tested it again, but this time I used my Sigma lens and I pointed it in the shade and I adjusted the white balance for no ND filter and then slapped the ND filter on. And this time I noticed the green in the leaves in the background, it was so much more saturated and vibrant as opposed to the one without the filter. But here's the thing, the pink started to look flat in the flower with the filter on there, which told me that it was adding way too much green into the shot. Basically on the color wheel, green and magenta / red, they're on opposite sides of the color wheel, so they'll cancel each other out. So if you have too much green, the reds and magentas won't appear as vibrant, and vice versa. If you have too much red and magenta, the greens won't appear as vibrant, which doesn't sound like a big deal. And if you're out in the woods doing things like that, it's not, because there's green around you all the time. So I mean, a little bit extra saturation in green won't be that bad. But where it does start to hurt you is if you're shooting people, because there's lots of magenta and red in human flesh. So obviously with too much green, it starts to cancel out those colors and the person starts to almost look lifeless on your shot. Or in another situation, an environment such as this, where there's not too much green, if you have too much in the frame, then that white in the background might start to look a little off, so you'll pick up on it right away. But overall, the camera did a fantastic job at correcting it. When I first got it, I went out with Willis and shot that sunrise sequence with him. I couldn't really tell that the colors were off, because I mean, I had an auto white balance and they look perfectly fine. I can't complain with them. But overall, how is the filter itself? Would I recommend it? I'd say yes, especially if you're in a pinch and you just need an ND filter but you're not trying to spend a boatload of money. This one will definitely do the trick. It's very sharp, and personally my Canon camera did a great job at adjusting to the color shift. The anti-reflection layer does a great job at cutting out any unwanted glare, and it does have 9 stops adjustable, so you can go from barely any light being cut out to a very dark filter. So it's very versatile, and best of all, it's $30, so it's pretty hard to pass it up. So I'll link it in the description below if you guys want to go check it out and buy one for yourself. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you all for watching the video. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.